Alright, so this is a continuation of the Whitewalker analogy. So this is the Whitewalker analogy segment of the fucking storyboard. And again, you may not view this as part of the story, and I'm here to tell you that it is. These are all of these minute details that are sprinkled all throughout that a person would always be like, dude, you're repeating yourself. And so this is where it requires patience and an open mind. Okay? Like what Frank Zappa said, a mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. So what I'm going to go into right now in this video is part of the story. This is part of the weird, strange truth phenomena that is stranger than fiction. The stranger than fiction phenomena that is a big part of this story. And it is the hordes and masses of NPC automaton sheeple. Okay? So this is going to take a little time to explain. This is part of the storyboard. So you'll have to have watched the previous video because this is a continuation. So, if you have some crazy thing happen to you, some unbelievable, because first of all, you have to consider the phrase "the truth is stranger than fiction." If you would agree that yes, this is often the truth. This is often the case that the truth is stranger than fiction. Well, so this truth that I am trying to storyboard is stranger than fiction. I'm talking about, basically a little town that is comprised of a cult with elements of Satanism and like a witch cult and corruption and these types of corruption into the highest levels of the local government in this town, including the fucking law enforcement and the officials above law enforcement. And it involves a murder that was basically like a satanic ritual murder, and being covered up by the town's law enforcement and the town's local government officials, covering it up and putting you in the position of being the one that had all this exposed to only you and no one else in the entire town, just you. And exposed to you in such a way where you're getting death threats, the veil is being lifted for only you to see and no one else. And the Satanists are the ones lifting the veil to show you, to expose the truth to you in jest and to mock you, and as a threat to you, to say, look, this is what's really going on, and you can't tell nobody because who the fuck is going to believe you, you dumb fuck? And we're coming for you. So that's how the truth is being unveiled to you, is in secrecy, so that it's only you that they're showing it to. Like, check it out. Yeah, motherfucker, what are you going to do now? And only you, no one else, because they know that by showing you isn't going to harm them, because what are you going to do? Who's going to believe you if you tell it? And especially, and this is how all this works with people involved in these type of conspiracies. And I'm talking about high-level conspiracies involving law enforcement, government, Satanism, murder, satanic rituals, arson, death threats, on and on. this is the way all this works is these people that are involved in this kind of activity, their whole bet is based on the fact that the world is populated with sheeple, NPC sheeple, that just pull levers and push buttons. That's all life is. There is nothing going on beyond just the mundane pulling of levers and pushing of buttons, and let's all just everybody pull levers and push buttons because that's all that's going on here. There isn't anything happening here. I'm just doing my civil duty as as I push it, and there is nothing outside of life going on outside of pulling levers and pushing buttons. These people that are involved on the highest levels, including law enforcement and government, that are involved in satanic activity of sacrificial murders and covering it all up using law enforcement and government and all this kind of conspiracy stuff, believe it or not, in small towns of a 2,000 people population out in the desert, out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, you hear the big P. Diddy stories and the big that's happening in LA, man. Oh, you hear all the big worldwide global stories of Klaus Schwab's, all the Klaus Schwab's, and that's all real. But that it would be happening in a little tiny ass fucking 2-mile radius town in the desert out in the middle of nowhere. Oh no, that's some crazy conspiracy theory. There's no way. Even though, it's happening globally, all over the place. P. Diddy, Epstein, everything is just happening, right? It's all happening, right? But that it would be happening in a little tiny town out in the middle of nowhere. No, this guy's he's just trying to get attention or whatever. It's like, see, what my point is even on a small scale, we're just going to look at like a tiny town, hypothetically, a 2,000 population town, that there would be scandal involving Satanism and witchcraft, satanic ritual murders that are being covered up by the town's police and the town's local government and stuff. The way this all works is they know that because what they're doing is so far outside of the pale of what anybody would ever even imagine is happening, that's how they get away with it. Because they know nobody would ever think that this is happening in this little town. And especially when everybody's just indoctrinated automaton NPC sheeple that pull levers and push buttons. Derpy derp, derpy derp, derpy derp. And they play on all this whole scenario. And they know that like 90% of the world's population are a bunch of NPC, automaton, sheeple that pull levers and push buttons, derpy derp, derpy derp, derpy derp, derpy derp. And that's how they're able to get away with it. And that nobody would ever, it would never even cross anyone's mind that there would be things like this happening in a small town. And of course, the same thing works on a larger scale in LA or in the World Economic Forum. It's all the same thing. This is what's happening on the macro global level. I'm talking about happening on a micro small town level. And this is why they're able to pull this off and get away with it. Is a lot of their reliance is they heavily rely on the ignorance of your average NPC sheeple. So that's how they get away with it constantly. And that none of those NPC sheeple are going to believe any of it. And to even fathom the idea or entertain the concept of it actually happening, all it'll do is piss off a sheeple because their life is just boring pulling of levers and pushing buttons. And if you're having this real life they live experience where you're going through like a John Nada moment where you're like, you fucking the sunglasses and you're seeing all this, for an NPC automaton to even consider the possibility of that being real, all it'll do is trigger them, and they'll get pissed off and be filled with resentment because their whole life is just meaningless automaton pulling of levers and pushing buttons. So these type of of uh, of uh, of of cults that conspire using satanic ritual and scandal up into the most disgusting and highest levels and stuff, even in a small town, it's the whole like, it's all based in the reality that nobody would ever even think, it would never even cross their mind that such outlandish ludicrousy could even possibly be going on. So that when you actually see it, you are isolated. Just like when gang stalkers, their whole goal is to isolate you. That's what gang stalkers do. They isolate people. And that's what's interesting too about small towns out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. Well, it's already isolated. So, like this town has a history of all this conspiracy that people have tried to expose to no avail whatsoever, because nobody pays any attention to a small town anyways. I mean, it would have to be some crazy shit. It would have to be like Satan coming up out of an abandoned mine shaft, and like with the demons and everything, and someone to actually capture it on camera to even draw any attention to a tiny ass town in the middle of nowhere. So anyways, these are all massive components of this story, and they're complex components of this story. So I don't know what to do about it. I mean, it's like, the old Italian saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? That's just part of the reality of the whole thing. And that whole, the way I tried to illustrate it, it's like if that cult just came up to you, they triangulated you and conspired against you so that they could come up to you and approach you and be like, check it out. And we're coming for you. And you can't tell anybody, because who are you going to tell? Who the fuck's going to listen to you? This is the way all this works. And it's all, you can't have this kind of operation going on without masses of automaton NPC sheeple that lever pulling, button pushing NPCs. Like, it's reliant on that, because none of those people are ever going to listen to anything, because the only thing that they understand is pulling a lever and pushing a button. You start talking about satanic cults and satanic human sacrifices and government cover-ups and of this satanic activity and that reaches up into the highest levels of the local towns, government officials and law enforcement. I mean, it's just like So it's just interesting as far as, but I'm sorry to have to go through all this and explain all this, but that is what this story is. And the pre-event, there's a lot of important supporting evidence in the pre-event. But it's like the pre-event is 3 years of me being totally unaware that this is going on in this town, let alone that I've been sleeping with the fucking enemy for the whole 3 years. So the pre-event is all this stuff happening that is crazy, but because I'm unaware that of the of the dark underbelly in this town, I'm not connecting the dots yet. And so all this stuff is happening while I'm unaware of the dark underbelly, let alone that I'm sleeping with the dark underbelly. And then after all this time, 3 years, then the big event just explodes out of nowhere. and it's like massive, like dumping of shell shock, boom, event, or like, you know, mini event after mini event, and just like bombs dropping on me, boom, boom. And then not being able to really process anything because I can't even keep up with the trauma, let alone try to piece all the pieces of the puzzle together while I'm in the middle of this fucking warfare going on, you know. And then the post event where I'm processing through all this trauma while I'm trying to piece this puzzle together, and I'm surrounded by a bunch of NPC automaton sheeple. So I've got nobody to help me. I'm totally alone. And then all the other pieces of the puzzle I'm gathering in the 2 years of the post event up until right now here. So this is just a part of the storyboard. This video is a post-it note that gets attached to the storyboard, so that once I get this whole storyboard, I can start taking all of this stuff and condensing it down to a clearer, more condensed, concise version. And hopefully at some point, you know, be able to get well versed enough at telling the story to where people can, it can be an honest, accurate depiction of what happened, and it can be something that a person can process without having to sit through 10 hours of it, and then they can come up with their own conclusions, like just like, here's the story, present it as objective as possible, but also as efficient and clear as possible, and then let the viewer decide what do they think is going on with all this, without trying to lead them necessarily one way or another, but while at the same time balancing that with making sure that this particular thing is clear, that you understand before you make your conclusion that this is what we're looking at. This is literally what we're looking at. This is real shit we're looking at. And as long as that's clear, I can emphasize that in an objective way, so that when the viewer watches it, they can view it objectively and come to their own conclusions about what they think this all means. And then if I can do that, where I can get viewers to watch it, then I can get input, actual input from people, where people will be like, because, and this goes back to 2 sets of eyes is better than 1. I tell you what, if you had this happen to you, and you had a gang of 5 people, and they were all invested in this, and they were all like, holy shit, and so you had 5 sets of eyes, all like, what the fuck, and they were all seeing what I was seeing, and we were all like, fuck, you know, then we would, you know, strength in numbers. 2 sets of eyes is better than 1. If I got 2 sets of eyes, they could see a piece of the puzzle that I didn't see and go, dude, that piece goes here. And I'd be like, oh shit, you're right? And if I had 5 people, then it would be like, oh hey, this piece goes here, this piece. But if it's just me, then I'm fucking dumped with all this trauma and everything else and everything, and I'm like grabbing this piece of the puzzle while I'm fucking all fucked up and got shell shock, and I'm like, okay, oh my god, dude. Then the phone call comes, and it's like, hello, well, yeah, your home is burnt down. What? You know, I mean, it's just like, so yeah, so this is unfortunately, this is video. It's 20 minutes of a post-it that gets added to this massive storyboard, and it's just one more piece where I'm like, okay, where do I put this one? And again, I am alone, surrounded by NPC automaton, lever pulling, button pushing sheeple, and all I have is myself to figure this out. So there's another piece. See ya.